I'll give her one anyway. She even hosted this stage yesterday, and now she's starting day 2. Very, very impressive. I think that's really cool. Marie has extensive experience with a bunch of AAA franchises. Ever heard of Batman Arkham, Deus Ex, or Dead Rising? Anyone? Anyone? Yes, yes. She's also been a board member at Female Legends, which is an organization that's close to my heart. And now she's here to tell us what makes an uppercut to an enemy feel so gosh darn good. And more specifically, how can we use artificial intelligence to help with that? Please welcome Marie Meyerwald.
Hello, everyone, again. Did you think I was really going to leave you? No, just kidding. Nice to be back. Actually, the first time I hosted Nordic Game, I had to, one session was canceled. So I was a host, and then I presented myself, and then I did a talk, and then I became back a host, and then I kind of lost my thread a little bit. So it's actually nicer to do it this way this year when there's another host actually presenting me, giving me a proper intro, and enabling me to focus on my stuff. And the stuff that we're going to talk about today are AI systems in games. These are the essentials. So this is targeted to people who are game designers, combat designers, who are gameplay programmers, who are interested in this topic. And these are the things that every AI designer should know if they do not already. As for me, I've been in games for actually pushing 20 years now. I started out as a gameplay programmer on Batman Arkham Origins, moved on to design, eventually made my way as game director, but all through it all, I've been working heavily within AI, heavily within leading combat teams, gameplay teams, etc. I've also been doing a lot of esports on the side for even longer than that, since the early 2000s. That's actually where my stage hosting career began. But today, I am a consultant. I run my own business. I help people with their games, pretty much, and with their systems, and with their combat. And I also teach. I have a master class in boss fight design that I'll tell you a little bit more about as we round it off. And I do game analysis of games to kind of help give feedback and kind of point and plot the steps forward. Cool. Now, as for games, we already had a couple of them mentioned by Matilda, but I have worked on Batman Arkham Origins, Dead Rising, Deus Ex, but also Roller Coaster Tycoon World, little known fact. I worked on a game in the RuneScape franchise and also the lead game designer on The Cycle. As for today, we only have about a 30-minute slot, so I've had to pick and choose a little bit. But these are the main combat systems that we work with within AI. And the ones that we're going to walk through today are the ones at the top: the behavior, target selection, aggression, attack allowance, reactions, and then we're going to specify in hit reactions a little bit later on. So let's start where it all starts, the aggression, when you are coming close to an AI or an NPC, as we call them. There's a lot of methodologies that we do use, depending on kind of which state the NPC is in and what he wants to do. High level, usually we have a hierarchy of finite state machine that I'm going to show you soon, which is the high level. Which state do I am? You know, for a human, it might be: do I eat? Do I sleep? Do I walk? Those kind of things. And then, of course, an NPC has a couple of more aggressive ones. We also have behavior trees, and that's what we use for our selection. When we know kind of what we want to do, we know who we want to fight, we're going to pick our action. That's when we look at the behavior trees that we're also going to walk through soon. Utility is another kind of technique that we use, and that is used for target selection to kind of determine, who do I hate the most, who do I want to hit. And also goal planning is something we usually use for whenever an NPC is walking through different cities. So it's not really something that is used in combat. It's more like their ambient behavior, whatever they want to do, whatever their life motivations are, kind of thing. As for hierarchical finite state machines, this is what they usually look like for any sort of NPC. Usually it's getting aggressed. You see that at the top. So let's start at top, at the middle. And then after that, it goes into combat when it wants to fight. Whenever the player is get killed, or whenever they maybe run away from the NPC, that's when they'll kind of go into a cooldown, lost target state. Maybe they'll look around for a little bit, maybe they'll start walking back, etc. And then whenever they found, wherever they want to be, they go back into ambient and they go about their day pretty much. If you are doing a stealth game specifically, or if stealth is an element of your game, you might also have this kind of alerted investigate phase where they're like, I think I heard something. And then it kind of looks around for you a little bit and stuck in that state. And then it determines, it was nothing, and goes back to ambient. Or it'll be like, yeah, it's over there. And then it actually gets aggressed. So that might happen. This doesn't always apply. That's like the rule, and here are the exceptions. If you are in a closed arena, like a very small arena, and everything is pretty close, then you might not even have this kind of reaction phase. You might just have like, as soon as they see you, they're just gonna run for you. Like they're kind of always on, always in combat. And they only really go back to ambient if like the players are dead and they have like no one to fight. They can't stand there and hit someone if there's no one to fight. And that's the only time when they'll kind of go back into an idle. So that happens, for example, for boss fights and similar things that are just in a closed arena. We usually do this by giving them a very strong perception, which is like they're all seeing, they're all hearing, no matter where you are, these NPCs will notice you, and they will also usually stay aggressed once they do. And then we tailor a lot of stuff around the movement to the size of the arena as well. And so a recommendation for me, if you're building a closed arena, is to make it round, because then you don't have any corner cases, no edge cases that you have to deal with. Pro tip. If you, however, are in the open world, then this actually is way harder, because this is a can of worms of issues, especially if the players move around, and then your NPCs wants to chase them around. And that might prove hard, especially if you're doing here. This screenshot is from Monster Hunter, where a player starts kind of climbing, and then you have a monster down there, who's like, okay, what do I do now? What do I do now? And actually, to spoil this a little bit, the monster actually will jump after you. And that's the kind of stuff, like suddenly your NPC needs a jump maneuver, suddenly your NPC needs to climb because it's an open world, and you need to give it a chance to chase the player around. And if you don't, you can run into these issues as well. You can have an NPC that gets stuck somewhere. The player ran through this really slim canyon or something, and like the big NPC, lieutenant or boss, whatever it is, can't follow because he gets stuck somewhere, and the player gets all these kind of like free shots and can like pew it. And that's not very good combat. That's not very interesting. So these are kind of things that can happen. And so for these cases, we kind of go back on the aggression a little bit to be like, okay, well, if you're still like angry with them, but you can't reach them, then we're going to have to deal with that. And the way that we usually do deal with that is something we call leashing and tethering. So what we do is that we tell an NPC, okay, this is your place. Either we just like have a spawn point and we give them like a circle or a distance, or we have a kind of the level designer can just like mark and fill where on the map this NPC is allowed to go. And whenever it's reaching its end, and where it's like, okay, well, I know I can't even fight over there, like there's water or something, I can't swim, then it just, normally we just let it walk back. And the not perfect solution that we do as game designers is that once it starts walking back, it regains full health and it cannot be aggressed for a little while to prevent the players from standing on the edge and kind of kiting them, so to say. And we do that because we want to give more integrity, which I'll go into a little bit more in a couple of slides. The best practice when you are also making these levels is to make it kind of clear wherever the NPC is able to go or not. I gave you the example of water. That's a pretty good divider. You can expect that it maybe doesn't know how to swim. But also if you have some sort of arena or some sort of natural cavern or something in your geo, then that helps the player to understand a little bit more kind of what area the NPC belongs to with. So that's for aggression. Next is behaviors. And here are the values that I promised that I would talk about. And there's basically two things that you always need to measure whenever you are designing your NPCs. On one hand, you want players to be able to read your NPC. You want them to be able to kind of figure out how to beat it. You want them to be able to detect patterns in your NPC so they can feel smart and form a tactic themselves about how to approach an encounter. But on the other side, you also want an NPC to have some integrity and not be completely controlled and not be put in these situations. So for example, in the leashing and tethering situation I just mentioned, if the NPC can't get to you, then you got to give it a little bit of integrity to be like, no, just walk away. We're going to give you back health because you're only going to fight if it's a fair fight, pretty much. So you always, and the way we do this is always letting the NPCs detect where the player is and if it's able to get to it or not. As for behavior trees, as mentioned, we use these in combat. They're widely used in action combat because they're very good at kind of navigating exactly what you want to do, and it's pretty good also coupling movement with the different attacks, etc. This is a very simplified version of how a behavior tree is usually modeled. These are commonly used also in Unreal. First it will check, and actually what I'm showing you now is the same thing that I showed you in the States here, but implemented, that theory implemented as a behavior tree. And the way to do that is to first check, do I have a target? Is there someone I want to hit? Am I angry? Okay, then I'm going to combat. Otherwise, okay, I don't have a target, but do I see someone? Someone over there. Then you're going into this aggression phase. And the next time you run the tree, you'll be like, well, now I have a target. So then you'll actually go into combat. But if you don't have any of this yet, you don't see anyone, then you're like, but did I just lose someone? Did I used to see it? Okay, then maybe I'll be in some sort of cool down phase and walk back or whatever it is. And if none of this, and you'll be like, I've never seen a player in my life, then you will go to ambient pretty much. So that's how you can model it inside of a behavior tree. One little thing here as well, if you're making some sort of scripted encounter with a lot of actions and different sequences happening when you are taking control of the NPCs, then you also usually have a scripted action override where you are just giving a special command to the NPC where it's like, wait, have I been giving a special instruction? Okay, then let's do that. But that's more the exception case. We're going to walk a little bit more into combat and what that usually looks like. Usually, we check first, am I under an effect? Have I been stunned? Am I slowed? Am I rooted or something like that? Okay, then maybe I can't do anything else. Then let's check that first. If not, then you're like, okay, I'm free. Then the NPC should ask itself, do I want to do a defensive maneuver? Am I in a bad position? Am I stuck in a corner? Am I caught in water but I can't swim? Okay, let's prioritize getting myself into a position where I can fight on equal terms. Next one, can I attack someone? Am I in attack range, my range where I can attack someone? And if you're a ranged NPC, you can shoot someone from far away, so that will be a long range. But if you're melee, then you have to be kind of close. And if you are, then you'll attack. But then if you're not in attack range, then the thing to the right is what always happens, which is you will go closer so you then get into attack range. And this models what I just told you about being responsive on the one hand, that the players can figure out this pattern, these are very clear rules, very clear conditions. But also it gives a little bit integrity for the player. So to the left you see reaction is what will be prioritized first because it's the leftmost value. And that is to be responsive. If the player stunned you, then that will take priority. But then if not, then the integrity comes in, and that's when they look at these defensive maneuvers. So you always need to manage and balance these two. For the attack, we're going to walk a little bit further. It really depends very widely what your game is, what your NPC is, and what it can do. But if it has some sort of ultimate attack, it usually prioritizes that over a basic attack. And if it don't have anything that it can attack, then it would just stand there and do a taunt and look a little bit intimidating as well. I will mention also, this is a case when we often use utility logic as well to determine which attack is the best. So that's all about behaviors. Now we're going to move into target selection. And this only applies if you have a multiplayer pawn game. So either you have a multiplayer game with several players, or you're playing Dragon Age or Final Fantasy or something when you are controlling one player, but you're having companions with you that you might or not be able to possess. In all these games, there are several player pawns. And this is something then that each NPC then needs to determine which one do I want to go for, pretty much. We use the combat log. If you play it on MMO, usually there's a tab you can click, or on a mobile where you can see like, you did this damage to this person. You know, this person did this much damage. This person killed this much, killed this other and got 30 gold if you're playing on MOBA. How many people know what I'm talking about? A combat log. Okay, we're all good. We're all good. So no need to explain that more. And so what an NPC then will do, well, in my games at least, that they'll make a hit list, as I call it. Well, they'll be like, okay, I'm going to read this log. Who did a lot of damage to me lately? Okay, who did the most damage to me lately? Who do I hate the most? And then NPC will make kind of an idea on, okay, I really want to go for this one. I really want to go for player 2. I hate player 2 the most. So if I'm allowed, I will attack player 2. There are a couple of more things that play in other than just the damage. That's the first parameter that players are expecting. But depending on how smart the NPC is, you know, if it's a boss, if it's a lieutenant, it might be a little bit more eloquent in how it's deciding who it wants to target. So, for example, if a player casts a crowd control, like a root or a stun or a mesmerize, or tries to put a curse on it, that might also count to this list to be like, hey, you tried to like stun me, or you did stun me. I hate you even more. So these things might also be taken into consideration. Also, you might have, you know, an NPC that is so smart to be like, I'm gonna go for the healer in the back, because that's the person keeping all these players alive, and that's how I can win. So you might go for that as well. And if players are giving any sort of rage or aggression skill, then those should also be taken into account. And then it really depends on your games, whatever your rules are. I mean, you can have just hit whoever's doing the most damage or hate, as I mentioned. Or you can have, like, if you have some sort of, like, minions, then maybe you the minion should go to whoever's hitting the boss, you know, because it wants to protect the boss, for example. Maybe you have a game with actual multiplayer game with different players, like a zombie game or Left 4 Dead, where you're like, okay, we should spread out. There's a player there who's lonely. Let's send a jockey after him, or, you know, let's spread out so every player has someone to dance with, as I like calling it. Or it could say we should attack the backline supports, or just spread out evenly, or whatever. You know, you can also, if your game is like really simple, straightforward, and you can also just give a random target. Really, it works pretty well, you know. You don't have to make it eloquent from the get-go. It's kind of something you get with iteration. So you'll figure that out. Next up is attack allowance, and that is, am I even allowed to attack the player that I want to attack? So there's a lot of things happening here. This is a kind of a subsystem in AI combat that has a couple of responsibilities, but most notably, it will determine who gets priority over who. You know, maybe you have a lieutenant or a bigger NPC that is more important. And also to make sure that the same player is not bombarded with just like too many of these NPCs, and it gets kind of uneven, or like more than it can handle as well. And also the attack allowance system can dispatch NPCs to be like, okay, you know, leave here and go over here after combat goes on. But again, it depends on your game, which ones you use. Proximity is an important one that players are expecting. So this will be, the players are expecting whatever NPC is close to them should be the one that's going to aggro on me. It's pretty natural. They're not going to run past me to go to my friend when I'm like right here, you know? And this is a calculation that is kind of ongoing because the players are literally moving targets. And so as per my little illustration here, if the player like starts statting by this red little robo-minion here, but then moves closer to Frankenstein, then maybe Frankenstein will have a reaction. And it might even be so that this little minion here, if it's not super angry with the player, it might be like, too much effort, I'll go for this one instead. So proximity is a big thing. Another thing that I mentioned is there enough room around the players? And not every game does this. This is what I learned from programming Batman Arkham Origins, the typical combat circles or attack circles. Is there enough space around this player? And what we usually look like is what's the size of the NPC, and how much angle does it take up of the player's circle? And can we actually fit more in here or not? And also, if you have someone who's like, it's my turn to attack, I got priority, but then it's just too far away, and they're like, yeah, but you're not in position, then that turn might go to one who is in a better attack position around the player. I mentioned priority here, and this is another utility system calculation. It's just mathematics. You get a couple of points for this, you get a couple of points for this. And another thing you get points for is how big is the NPC. If you're dealing with a boss, you'll be super high priority. You put that kind of weight on it, on everything else. You'll be like, okay, super big. If you're just having a smallest little, grunt or something like that, then they get pretty low priority. More things do play in, and again, this is something you get to with iteration. It can be whatever NPCs in the field of vision for the player is going to get priority as well, so that it gets backstabbed a little bit less, and it feels more engaging, that it's fighting things that it has a chance to react to. If there was an NPC that's been waiting for a really long time to attack, they might also get a little bit of a bonus for that. And anyone who does not get the green sign, they kind of convert to, okay, I may not attack. Going back to the behaviors that we spoke about earlier, I'm gonna do an idle, I'm gonna do a taunt, I'm gonna stand there and look intimidating, or I'm gonna reposition, or something like that, to give the player the illusion that they're still a threat to the player, even though they're kind of not. So that's the attack allowance system. Next up is the reaction system. And you don't need to remember everything here, but whenever there's an attack coming to the NPC and it needs to determine how to react, I divide these into two categories. The first one is the instant reactions that will happen now. This will be stuff like a hit reaction, the health bar gets reduced, maybe there's a stun effect or something like that, something that the player expects will happen no matter what, and immediately. These are the instant reactions. And then you have secondary reactions. And for these, I use the combat log or the memory log. And these are things that might happen. And this goes back to the target selection and the behavior selection that we mentioned before. You're hitting an NPC, and it might decide to target you depending on where you are on the hit list, how much it hates you. And same also with what kind of behavior it will choose as well. It will determine that. And that also follows these values that I told you about earlier. The instant reactions are those that are responsive to the player and what the player is doing. Meanwhile, the ones where the NPC gets to make a choice: who am I targeting? What am I targeting with? These are made to give the NPC a little bit more integrity on how it wants to do. It is up to the discretion of the NPC how to react for the asynchronous ones, and they might also be delayed in time. To specify a big topic in every game that I've ever worked on, hit reactions. I do want to go into these just a little bit more. There are 1,000 ways to do your hit reaction systems. What commonly happens is that there's a stability factor. And so depending on how big your NPC is, it will have a different stability. So a big one, a chunky one, whatever, a big brawler, abomination, whatever it is, it's going to stand a little bit more steadily than someone who's more squishy or more smaller. And these go into the logic, or there might even be mathematical calculations for this, depending on how thorough you want to be. As I mentioned, there's many ways to handle it. Some games just have a force parameter, where every attack, the animators and the game designer, look at every animation and be like, that looks pretty powerful, and we're going to give that a high force parameter. That then goes into these mathematical equations. You could also use damage, whatever damage it had. Maybe there were bonuses too, because it had a buff on it or something. Then whatever that damage was being done is the force parameter as well into the calculations. You can also have a game where the NPCs only react if there's a critical hit, especially if it's a big NPC, like a boss or a lieutenant or something like that. Or you can say that if there's a special like mode or combo system in your game, we had a free flow mode in Batman, only then will there be like a large reaction. You can also say that there are no large reactions in our game because we're making multiplayer games and there's like 1,000 players playing them at the same time and the NPC can't keep reacting to all of them at the same time. And then you can just say that the NPC does small flinches or just visual effects and sound effects and a little damage number as well. You can also, in the case of bosses, have some sort of stun bar that is filling up that makes it stun for a little while whenever it's being filled. Again, it depends on your system and the different NPC in question. The different tiers that we usually do is that the smallest one, apart from just visual effects, of course, is a flinch. And it's an additive animation that just kind of it's very short. That might even correspond to the body part where the NPC was hit. So if you're hit in the right shoulder, then you should show a little flinch only in that right shoulder, and preferably in the opposite direction from when the force came from. So if you're being targeted, if there's a player standing here and I'm the NPC and I'm being hit here, then my shoulder should go that way, pretty much. So that's what kind of flinches do. And they're additive ones that gets added to whatever animation the NPC is currently in. The next category that is a bit more severe, again, this is like if you're doing critical hit, if you have a strong force, you're doing a lot of damage, then we get into the territory of a full body reaction. A full body reaction is usually still like short, and it will be like either like a full upper body or a just full body as well. And a very important distinction for these is that they interrupt the NPC. And this is pretty big, because if the NPC is like, I'm moving my ultimate attack, I waited for like 60 seconds, it's finally charged, and then the player is able to interrupt that sucks for the NPC, and it's just not as challenging for the player as well. So you do want to be a little bit more adamant on when do I allow a full body reaction or not. But if the player is using it in their ultimate, then maybe it's fine. So it really depends. There are more systems and rules you can use around this to make exceptions, like immortality frames or telegraphing phases in your animation, etc., to make it exactly where you want it to be. But all in all, be aware whenever you're giving a full body reaction, because the expectation is that it will interrupt the NPC. The last one here, kind of long, strong reaction will be like a stun, a big knockback, a big displacement, knockdown. You know, we mentioned the uppercut jaw from Matilda earlier. Those things are really strong reactions that both interrupt and also puts the NPC kind of out of commission for a couple seconds. And it's something you need to be very with how much you do it, because it can really make the combat very easy for the player, even if it feels satisfying. But if you're just doing small little grunts and they're not, you know, they're kind of squishy, then go ahead. Go ahead. And all these also relate to what I told you about the values, about giving a little bit integrity to the NPCs. Last part is positioning. I think we're gonna cut this one because we're a little bit short on time, and we're gonna move into the summary instead. I'm gonna wrap it up. If you are more interested in AI talks, this was just the essentials that every AI designer should know. I did have a GDC talk this year. It's on the Vault. It does all this stuff at scale with hordes and hordes of AI running at you, and it's a system, an overmind system that controls all the AI in a co-op game. I also have a masterclass in boss fight design where I go into more detail about the animations and the hit reactions. I go into how you can determine the archetype for your boss, how you can equip it with actions, how you give it, you know, different traps and different props in the arena, how you schedule your stages and intensity, and a lot of cool stuff. I'm running it currently, and I will be running it again this fall. Look me up, follow me on LinkedIn, or go to my website, and you'll be able to hear whenever I'm running it next. That's it. We're moving in the QA part now. Thank you so much for listening. Best of luck with your AI combat. If you need help, get in touch, because that's what I do. And you see a couple of my services here. You know, I can help you with your combat, your systems. You can join my masterclass. If you want an analysis of your game or your combat, you know, let me know. And I also give classes in game design.
Come on. Yes. So, are we ready with some questions? I see one in the middle already there. Yeah. With the notebook.
Is it working?
Yeah.
Hi.
Okay.
Nice. There is a saying that great AI, anime AI, is not AI that can easily win against the players, because we can actually quite easily make it to do so. But AI that loses to players with style. Do you agree with that? And if yes, do you have any tips how to actually do it in games?
So this depends on what difficulty it is, really. What's your difficulty? And this can be like, did the player get to choose the difficulty before they started a single-player game? Or it can be that it's some sort of instance dungeon that they're going to, and it has a difficulty level listed on it. Or it can be something that you determine more kind of dynamically as you go, maybe depending on how many players there are. But what's always true is that that the NPC should give the players the challenge that they signed up for, pretty much. And then how you do that? By spawning more of them, making them more powerful, shortening their cooldowns. There's 1,000 different ways to do so. And you should hopefully know your game enough to know how powerful the play will be at a specific time. And once you know that, and you know the difficulty challenge of this section of the game, then the rest is just easy, and you can also get there by playtesting.
Okay, thank you.
We have the next one. We have one in the middle here. Can we get through? Beautiful. Teamwork. There we go.
Thank you. I have two questions. How do you design NPCs that attack other NPCs? And how does the priority evolve over time? Like, you had a priority of weights. How, like, the 1 and 99, can they just get lower weights over time and those kind of things? Thanks.
Yes, so first, NPCs attacking NPCs. This is one of the hardest things to do in games to make it good. And you know why? Because an NPC is an algorithm. And then another NPC is another algorithm. And if you put two together, one will always win. And you can add a couple of random elements to it. A lot of games do that to give but there's a fighting chance and stuff. But it becomes a kind of theater, and if players keep watching it, they might just be like, okay, this is getting pretty predictable. Monster Hunter does it really well. And here is actually the interrupts play in very well there, because if you have one NPC that can really interrupt the other all the time and it can't do anything, then it's a pretty boring fight. So these things are tailored, these things don't just work. As a designer, we have tested every combination of NPCs that might meet each other in the game and make sure that work, or that they don't go to each other's areas if we don't want to deal with it. So it's one of the hardest things to do. I'm happy to talk more about it after the session. As for your other with priority, there are many factors that play into priority. Let's see if we can find that slide. There it was. Like I mentioned, the field of vision might give points, depending on how big you are, how important. If you're the boss, a tenant, that might give points. If you have a longer waiting time, that might give points. If you are closer in proximity, that'll give a lot of points. So all these things kind of measure up, and eventually it just becomes a mathematical comparison of which ones will actually be allowed to attack the player. Does that answer your question? Cool.
Thank you. Do we have another question? Yeah, there we have one. Can we get the mic over there? Thank you.
Thanks for a very interesting presentation. Really fun to see the overall structure and everything. I remember you mentioned hierarchical state machine. And it seems like you could do most things with just a behavior tree, but are there some parts that you would use a hierarchical state machine for?
I use them for the high level, really. That's all I really use them for. You can use it sometimes if the boss is in a rage mode or something like this, and it's a little bit more simpler, then you can just rely on a simpler state machine. But what I use them for, and a lot of people use for, is just kind of the high level mood and state the player, the NPC is in, and from there on, kind of behavior trees figure out the rest.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. And we have one more question there in the middle. Is it possible to get through to there? I think so. Oh, see, now we're helping each other out.
Hi, thanks for the cool talk. So when you tweak difficulty,
yes,
do you ever use behaviors of AI as a thing to tweak?
I avoid it. There are many things that I can tweak. I mean, best would be numbers. What are the damage numbers? What are the health numbers? You know, if you can just get away with numbers, then try doing so. It works to an extent until the numbers become stupid and you're like one-shotting people, and then you can't really do that. Behaviors is bad because it will feel mechanically different when you're fighting, and players can even compare on YouTube. They're like watching someone else. That's not what happened. Like, but it never used the ultimate attack. So you got to be tread carefully with that as well. There's what I would try to do is to look at other things that's happening in the combat. Are there like creators with health packs? Well, then you can make sure every creator has a health pack. Maybe there's different other sort of minions or grunts, and they're dropping health, or they're dropping a little bit of buffer booster, or anything like that. Or maybe you have a companion AI with you, is fighting with you, and you can tweak the numbers on that one or something like that. So try to look at the full picture and try to make something that feels the same, no matter what, no matter how much help the player needs or whatever it's signed up for. Try to find everything just to make sure that the fight has the integrity and the intended feeling that you designed it for.
Thank you so much. And that's all the time we have for today for Marie Meyerwall. Thank you guys so much for sitting here, and thank you so much for the amazing talk. We'll be right back with you, but give a warm applause to Marie Meyerwall.